All right. Excuse me. So I sat down to record this episode. Shout out to everyone on the Discord channel. It's now, I think, 2 hours guys, from when I said I was going to record this episode. I got distracted. Literally everybody and their mother called me. I was like, I'm going to record this podcast. Like, I went to go record it. My mother-in-law called and I was like, bet, okay. So I was sitting and I listened to the conversation. Then I was like heading downstairs and then my sister-in-law reached out and I was like, okay, I need to record this podcast. And then I sat down, set up everything. And then my actual mother called and I was like, okay, Mom, I have to go. Like, I have things to do. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. It's just like, there's a video on my YouTube channel called The Pushback Effect. It's an old video. I don't like it. I didn't like the way my makeup looked on that. I didn't like my hair. I don't like the video, the visuals in the video. However, I hit it. I unhit it because the content, the information was like super valuable. So like I overcame my own ego and vanity to post this video because I figured the information was more important, but I it's not one of my favorite videos. It was like, anyway, besides the point. It's called, what I talked about on that episode was called the pushback effect. And what I said was, in the simulation, one of the laws of our simulated reality is that if you say you're going to do something, you set out to do something, doesn't matter what the fuck it is, okay? You have a goal. I'm going to do this thing, or I'm not going to do this, right? I'm going to lose weight, or I'm no longer going to eat sweets, right? The universe pushes back. There is always a pushback. So I called it the pushback effect, right? Analogies that I used in the video, I used like the a law. It says like for every action, right? I think it's a law of thermodynamics, but I could be wrong. Anyway, but for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, right? So anything you set out to do, you're going to get some pushback. It's just the law. Like I want to sell my house. Okay, it's not gonna, unless like it's just a fluke or something happens. 9 times out of 10, you go, okay, I'm gonna sell my house. It's like, it's not gonna be the first offer. It's gonna be second. There's gonna be some bullshit that happens between point A to point B. It's never a straight fucking line from point A to point B. It doesn't matter what it is. Right? Or you go, okay, I'm going to sell my house. And then like the first realtor that you connect with is trash. Like, it's never a straight line. There's always going to be a pushback no matter what. Right. So for me, it was like, I'm going to record this episode. I'm going to do that now. I'm going to have a productive day. I'm going to record a podcast. I'm going to post it. I'm going to paint, well-laid plans of mice and men, but it's never a straight line, right? There's always going to be a pushback. What happens for most people is that they don't know this, right? So they set out to do something. They are met with that pushback, right? The universe goes, okay, so you put the energy out there. I want to accomplish this goal. The universe says, fuck you. Just kidding. It goes, are you sure? Are you sure about this, right? So you say, let's use a more sort of like personal example. I'm not going to mess with fuckboys anymore, right? So I get a couple of people message me asking me about this. But it's like, I don't know why you guys are like messaging me about relationship advice, but they're interesting, so I do my best to answer them. But, there was a girl who'd like messaged me. She said that I should say woman. This is a young woman, a young lady, pardon me, who, she was having issues. Like, she's trying to date a particular type of guy, right? So she's determined that I will no longer date fuckboys. Okay. And then like enter 50-11 fuckboys, right? And she like gets caught up in that. And I basically said like that one of the reasons why I reposted the video, because I was like, just watch the video. And she's like, I can't find the video. And I was like, oh, I must have hid the video because I didn't like my makeup on that. Vanity. I'm terrible, guys. It was from 4 years ago. So I reposted it, but I said, it's never a straight line from point A to point B, no matter what you decide you want to do in this reality. Just expect the pushback, expect an opposite reaction of what you have decided you want to do. Okay. So, I said, what happened? So you put the intention there, right? You are trying to actualize a particular reality experience where you are with a nice person, a good boy, a nice boy, right? That respects you, cares about you, et cetera, et cetera. So you put that is what you're no longer going to mess around with fuckboys. Yeah. And then, a wild fuckboy appears, right? Okay. At that point in time, you have now, you have the option to exercise your choice, your free will. This is a test. This is only a test. This is a test of the emergency simulation broadcast. Okay. And so a wild fuckboy, he's probably controlled by the simulation. He's probably not even like conscious. He just pops up and he's there to waste your fucking time. Yeah. Now you have a choice. Do you really want to get to point B where you have your partner? That's the partner that you've decided you want. You no longer want the fuckboys. Do you really want that? The universe is going to test you. And so if you don't hold tightly to what you say you want, then you will not get to where you're trying to go. These are facts. So I asked her, did you engage with the wild fuckboy? And she said, yes. I said, okay. She's like, and then after that, like somebody else popped up and I was like, okay, so you can't even get mad at these guys popping up because you need to understand that these are tests. Okay. So if you said, I'm trying to do this, and then the opposite of what you said you want pops up, don't waste your time. Continue down the path. It's never a straight line, but don't waste your time. What you desire. We talked about this on the Discord channel. Manpreet, user Manpreet brought this up, and he said he really enjoyed my episodes where I talked about retrocausality. And he brought up a really good point. He was like, there's some older videos on my YouTube channel where I kind of experienced a pushback of my own. I think I was at 58,000 followers. And I think in my mind, I had a goal of like, I wanted 100,000 followers on the TikTok channel, but I was experiencing pushback, right? Like my videos are being suppressed, et cetera, et cetera. And so he asked, is there, what is it about, what happened there, and how can you sort of attribute it to like a retrocausality? And my response was simple. I said, I knew that there existed a reality where I had 100,000 followers on TikTok, where I had that experience. It's not something that I would have to manifest. It's a reality experience that already exists, pre-programmed into the simulation, which is one of the reasons why I love the simulation hypothesis, because you do understand that nothing is impossible. So I knew, because I had the desire for 100,000 followers, I knew that the desire and outcome are linked, right? The outcome is a location in space-time that I have, right? There was a high probability that I would be able to actualize that reality experience, right? All I had to do was just persist on that path. There's not a straight line from point A to point B. And so I just figured, I know I'm going to get there. It was only really a matter of how long, right? The distance is time. So if you guys haven't had a chance to check out a couple of my other episodes, I think 2 episodes back where I talked about space-time being like, you have to think about time and time travel as like distance in a way, right? It's kind of parallel, right? So you travel through space, we call that distance, right? And when we travel through time, we call that time. Time is weird, but you get it. So it's just the rate of time in which is going to take for me to get from this version of reality to a reality experience that already exists as a probability. I just need to actualize it by the actions that I take in the present. They're all connected. I would not have had a desire to actualize that experience, the reality experience where I had 100,000 TikTok followers, had it not already existed as a probability for Joe, this persona, right? Desire and outcome are linked. So pay attention to the things that you desire. Pay attention to the things that you desire. They tend to be sort of hints to possible reality experience, or I should say probable reality experiences that you can actualize, right? But I'm using specific words intentionally when I say probable. Understand that some things have low probabilities and some things have high probabilities. So if you have, for example, because this always comes up, somebody said, I had a couple people when I talked about this on the TikTok channel, they're like, well, I want to marry you, so I have a desire to marry you. And I'm like, that's an extremely low probability of that happening in this reality. Sorry. Is it probable? Sure. But it's like 0.0009% probable that I will marry you. One, I'm already married. Two, I'm not interested in you. So that's a very low probability. So just keep things in mind. The probability is important, is what matters, right? But me getting 100,000 followers on TikTok had a higher probability of occurrence, right? Of actualization than, say, some random person on TikTok saying they want to marry me, right? Or me marrying some random person off TikTok. So you got to pay attention to probability. The universe is mathematical. There's a book, Our Mathematical Universe. So it was written by Max Tegmark. He basically broke down how everything is mathematical in our universe, but was not comfortable enough to just take it to its logical conclusion that if everything is mathematical, right, and digital, right, then we're in a simulation. Just status quo, I guess, where he just was not able to just conclude that we're in a simulation for whatever reason. And it's fine. But we have brains. You have a brain. You can form your own conclusion, right? This is what I talked about on the Discord channel. I need you guys to understand this. If you're looking at the world and you don't like the way it is, understand that a small group of individuals, like a handful of individuals, have been able to direct the course of the entire human race, billions of people. A small group of individuals, literally 0.001% of the human race, have been able to direct the entire course of the entire species. So if you don't think you can make a difference, you're not paying attention. And more importantly, they aren't any better than you. If they can change the entire course of our reality, look at everything that we've seen now. Listen to the things. I'm not going to delve into it on this episode. But I would say if you are listening on YouTube, go on my Spotify and find the video, Follow the Money, the one that came before this one. It's not on the YouTube channel because YouTube took it down. And if you don't subscribe to my YouTube channel, I suggest you do, because I talked about it on there. I put out a video talking about how that video got taken down, whatever. So for those of you that are on YouTube, if you didn't watch the follow-up video to that after it got taken down, and you got cut off in the middle of watching it, you can find it still on my Spotify, Overcast. It's on Audible. You can find me everywhere. So just FYI. But I mentioned a certain handful of individuals who, for whatever reason, and I stated what the reasons are, but I'm not going to get into this episode because that's not what this episode is going to be about. They want a reality experience where they benefit. And so their desire, these handful of individuals, these just literally couple men, their desire to actualize a probable reality experience where they benefit, right? They want a heavenly experience for themselves where they're wealthy and, the population is reduced, and, right? And we're all largely dependent on big pharma. That's what they want. And they have been able to harness and steer our collective consciousness, right, through using, various tools, marketing, social media, mass psychosis, more on the topic of that topic, mass hysteria, and using fear to trigger the crowd, can be found in a book by Gustave Le Bon called On the Crowd, something to that effect. I need to pull it up. Give me 1 second. Hopefully I won't get booted off here. One second. Hold on 1 second. The book is, dang it, I hate when I do that. Sorry, guys. I I do this every freaking episode. Sometimes you guys don't realize because I edit out that part. But anyway, so the book is called The Crowd, A Study of the Popular Mind. I've mentioned this in the past. I will mention it again. If you want to understand, and this is like a predecessor to Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays wrote the book on propaganda 100 years ago in the 1920s. I've talked about this in past episodes, but he utilized the information from this particular book, The Crowd, by Gustave Le Bon. And you are seeing the tactics from that book being utilized now. Now we're starting to emerge out of this bullshit right in time for midterm elections. Kel fucking surprise, right? If you don't believe that this has all been sort of orchestrated, you're not paying attention. But please understand that whoever they are, were successful in navigating the collective consciousness of the entire human species, or at least the majority of us, to perform particular actions. They were successful. They will do it again, right? And so you need to know what to look for, how to protect yourself, and how to essentially inform other people. Because the fact of the matter is, there is no reason for those who are conscious, people who listen to, this podcast, people who think for themselves, critical thinkers, to look at the world as it is and be hopeless. Zero reason. If anything, you should be able to look at the psychopaths who are in power. These people shit like you. These people piss like you. These people burp like you. These people sleep like you. There's nothing special about them, right? I have said this and I will say it again. The bullshit with the Illuminati and there's a secret society and all this blah, blah bullshit. It's just an illusion to make themselves seem larger than life or supernatural in some way or more powerful than they actually are. So I keep saying it and I'll say it again. These are just individuals, just like you and I, who have taken it upon themselves to essentially control the rest of us. All right? Another mantra that I echo, people say I have a problem with authority. I don't have a problem with authority. I just do not accept that anybody has any authority over me. In order for you to have authority over me, in order for me to have a problem with authority, I have to first acknowledge that someone or something or a group of people or collective, whatever the fuck you want to call it, of human beings like me are somehow superior to me. And I'm sorry, but I do not have an inferiority complex, and I will not accept an inferiority complex that has been, like that they try to impose on us, right? So we talk about the government, like the government is God or something like that. The government is just it's a collection of greedy fucking human beings, right? That's it. They have an 80-year lifespan. They're going to die. Nobody's going to think about them in 100 years. They have addresses. They have names. They're just people in suits, right? Police. You're some guy who maybe dropped out of high school, right? You barely got your GED and now you put on a fancy uniform and wear a lethal weapon on your waist and somehow I'm supposed to respect you. You're a dude in a costume, right? Priests. Right? You're a man in a dress, right? You put on a fancy costume, you walk around with like a cross and I'm supposed to respect you. Why? You're a man in a dress. You're wearing a costume, right? So it reminds me of that experiment that they did in I think Milgram's experiment in the 70s, where they had people, they were all college students, but then they went into this prison and some people were dressed up. They put on the costume of prisoners and then others put on the costume of jailers. And then everybody lost their fucking minds, right? That's so I'm supposed to essentially bow to your will because you're wearing a costume. Well, it works, right? Because it's been this inferiority complex and superiority complex has been essentially programmed into our minds from childhood. Respect authority, right? What the fuck does that mean? Who has authority over you? Oh, the experts. No. First of all, let's go back to experts. Experts are like anything else. There's two sides to everything, All right. So it's like politicians, or more than two sides, actually. All right. So if they say trust the politicians, well, what does that mean? Right. Because there are Republicans, there are Democrats, right? There are libertarians, right? There's the Green Party. Right? These are all politicians. They don't all believe one thing. Right. So why should I trust the umbrella politicians if all of these, like what falls under this umbrella of a politician, are different individuals that think and believe and have studied different things, right? But they don't want you to think like that. It's just the experts, right? Because when you put individuals under an umbrella group, they seem to be more powerful than they actually are, like the government. It's just people, right? It's not some Uncle Sam sitting on a throne in Washington, D.C., a giant, right? It's just fucking people, right? Right? Same thing as scientists. Well, scientists don't agree unanimously across the board on everything. Several books that I've read this week take a step from, the quantum physics and things like that to explore these topics, because it is important. And what we've seen happen in the last 2 years, guarantee you they're going to do that shit again. And it's important for us to educate ourselves. At least it's important for me to educate myself. So the books I've read, The Real Anthony Fauci, Virus Mania is what I'm reading now. And then the one before that was Inventing the AIDS Virus. It's not just about AIDS. It's about everything. HPV, multiple sclerosis, shingles, all of these sort of, quote, viruses are discussed, along with HIV and things like that. And these are books written by scientists who, like politicians, don't all believe what, the majority or what we're told is a general consensus on, whether or not viruses are even a thing or even exist. Antibodies they can find, they can see antibodies, but viruses are particles. And according to these books, these 3 books that I also have offered you guys, if you're interested, I will buy you books. Reach out to me. Okay, I will buy you books on Audible if you can't afford them. The recommendation. A couple of you guys have taken me out on that, and I'm happy to do it. But for you to understand, because for me, the biggest thing was the whole AIDS thing and the HIV. To hear 3 different authors now that I've read in these books, Virus Mania, Inventing the AIDS Virus, and The Real Anthony Fauci, all basically echo the same sentiments, that it is not a unanimous consensus that HIV causes AIDS. It's also not a unanimous consensus that HIV is transmissible, right? There are scientists who believe, there are experts who believe that it was because of intravenous drug usage and something called poppers, nitrates that were actually utilized by gay men in the 80s or whatever, and it depleted their immune system. And then in Africa, because money, right? Anybody who had dysentery or tetanus or diseases that were coming to that area, they weren't tested. They were just diagnosed with having AIDS so that money, right? Follow the money. Okay. So there's more in this book, but you do need to understand. So a lot of these books were, except for the Anthony Fauci book, the other 2 books were written in the 90s, and I think the Virus Mania book is more recent than the Inventing the AIDS Virus book. But in that book, the writers said something to the effect of they were looking for a viral cause of multiple sclerosis, and then they found out that you cannot correlate the 2. That was in the 90s, and then a couple of days ago or last week, I saw an article with them saying that there is a viral connection to multiple sclerosis. I have an underlying autoimmune disorder that they tried to, quote, test me for. And I had issues happen there because I had one doctor test me for something called Devick's disease. It's supposed to be worse than MS, if you can believe it. And at the time, they told me that if I did not get on this immune system modulating prescription, essentially shutting down my immune system. If I didn't take this medication that would shut down my immune system, I was going to be disabled and blind in a year. Needless to say, I did not take the medication. I sought a second opinion, and I had a negative test, and then the doctor basically told me, you cannot diagnose somebody based on inconclusive tests. Like you can't, this is bullshit. So had I not sought out a second opinion, I would have been on a medication that would have completely destroyed my immune system. And by the way, I'm not blind and I'm not disabled. And I've been relatively healthy since then, with just monitoring what I eat and monitoring my moods and avoiding stress and taking certain vitamins. So just understand that even though there are individuals who put on costumes, even a doctor's coat is a costume, and they talk to you like authority figures, and they tell you, you must do what I want you to do. Understand that they are wearing an outfit that is just a human being talking to you. And no matter what the topic is, in the real world, in real life, if you really pay attention, there is never a unanimous conclusion on where everybody broad strokes agrees on the same thing. Okay, I'm re-hitting certain points, right? So going back to, I even mentioned the whole thing with dinosaurs, right? So if you ask the average person what happened with the dinosaurs, they'll say, well, the asteroids took them out. But once again, there are scientists who disagree that asteroids took out the dinosaurs. There are other scientists, other groups of experts who think that it was a mass volcanic events, like just volcanoes were erupting, going up, boom, 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 boom. And then that's what caused, the clouds to be covered. And then that's what caused eventually for the dinosaurs to die. I did not know this, but now I do. And I actually have a friend that's in school now, in college now, and she's saying that at her university, they're now starting to teach something different. So I'm saying all this to kind of drive the nail in, to understand that, yes, I'm not saying you shouldn't listen to people who are well read in a particular topic, but there was a great meme floating around that said you could literally Google anything and find experts on both sides saying the same, diametrically opposite things, right? So are eggs good for you? Are eggs bad for you? You can go and Google and type in, those two questions, and you can find a bunch of scientists telling you that it's good for you. And then you can find a bunch of scientists telling you that it's bad for you. Anything, pick a topic, any topic. For the most part, human beings just don't fucking agree with anything, right? So be mindful when a person is trying to essentially dominate you. They are human beings just like you. They're just wearing a costume. And even if they went and they studied for 10 years something, that's not your fucking problem. They might have studied the wrong shit for 10 years, right? There are well-read individuals who studied history, right? Majored in history, but it was a history based on white supremacy, right? So you can have a PhD in history, but if you went and got a PhD in history now, the things that you learn are going to be drastically different than what a person learned even just 10 years ago, because we are becoming more conscious, we're becoming more aware, and we're not we're not telling history through the perspective of just one culture, right? That kind of went through and sort of destroyed everything. Do you get what I'm saying? So I'm saying that the reason why we have the issues that we have is just the fact that there's a lot of human beings who just have a blind sort of well, the person on TV said it, so it must be true, right? Or this person said it, so it must be true. Back to the books that I read. There are individuals, and I want to delve into this too deeply, but just understand that having access to knowledge, particularly in the books that I mentioned, is going to shape the way you perceive things, and it might eventually even save your life. So real quick, an example in the book, in both books, Virus Mania, and let me make sure I'm actually saying that correctly. Make sure that that's actually Virus Mania. 1 second, guys. Yes, it's Virus Mania by Torsten Engelbrecht. It's a fun name. So They talked about both books, Virus Mania and Inventing the AIDS Virus. They both brought up the whole Magic Johnson HIV thing. And long story short, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but long story short, he tested positive for HIV also. That is true. But one, it could have been a false positive. And two, what the scientists were saying, doctors were saying in these two books is that there was really not much of a correlation between the virus, the retrovirus HIV, and AIDS. There were possible other factors, right? So let's go back to Magic Johnson. Right? Everybody's like, how is he still alive? I thought like AIDS was supposed to like take people out. That's a good question. So he tested positive, and his doctor strongly recommended he take this like antiviral drug that had been known to have devastating side effects at the time and kill people, right? And so he started taking it, and it like he started falling sick. Now something happened, and he stopped, by his own admission and his admission of his team, he stopped taking the medication because he trusted himself, if I had to guess. And when he got off the medication, the antiviral medication, he got better. And that is how, literally, he has been able to live as long as he had. But it took him taking a step back and seeking out other information, not just going with one source, right? And literally trusting your entire life on it. There, even at that time, there were doctors coming out and saying they don't believe that there's a correlation between this virus, HIV, and AIDS. That this virus is just a commonly occurring virus, and that there are other factors that could be causing people to get sick, including greed. Okay, so that's very important. That's why I want to bring that up, and I want you guys to check it out. I have to, unfortunately, because that's the world we're living in right now, but that doesn't mean that that's the world we have to hold on to, right? There is a myriad of probable realities that exist right now as probabilities. If you can get enough people to wake the fuck up, right? We can change things. You know, another individual on the Discord channel, Genghis Christ, said, made a really valuable point. He said, or she said, I'm not sure. Sorry, I apologize. But they said, there you go. Love you guys. But they said that people on the left know that we can do better, that something's got to give. Right? People on the right know that we can do better. Ultimately, what unites us all is the knowledge that we can do better. And to me, I thought that was beautiful because we can do better. This world does not have to be the way that it is. If you have a handful of individuals, they who shall not be named, but you know who I'm talking about, can shape the world. Look at what has happened in the last 2 years. It was a small group of people that essentially used the media, used the news, used fear to push and scare us into behaving in a particular way. But that to me is a good thing. That to me tells me that you don't have to wake up 8 billion people. You have to wake up the people. I'm going to say this twice. You have to wake up the people like you and I who look up and say things can be better. Because the people who are running the world, that have made the world the way it is now, they looked up and thought things could be better for them. And they made it so. So you should look to that, to what they've done, and say, okay, well, if it's possible for these handful of individuals to shape the world to the way it is now and make heaven for themselves while making hell for the rest of us. Well, if you're a conscious individual, just walking around saying you're woke doesn't mean anything, right? You don't have to wake up 8 billion people. You find other people who are also awake, and then you get them to inspire others, right? To do something different, right? To harness the collective. The analogy that I used is that in every generation, right, you got like 80% of the populace that are sheep, and they're just sheep. That's okay. It's not a bad thing. They're just there. You can call them NPCs. It is what it is. Okay. Like, let's lean into the simulation hypothesis, right? The majority of the players in this game, 8 billion people, let's say 80%, right, are NPCs. Okay. Now, there's 5%. I'm being generous here. It's not even that much, but let's just say there's 1% of the populace of that 8 billion. Let's say 1%. And I'm being generous. But 1% are the sociopaths, the psychopaths that go, okay, well, I want to live in a world where I'm a billionaire and like, fuck this planet, fuck the world, let's pollute everything. All I care about is what I want, right? Those are very small percentage, right? Okay, so they put them over there, right? Which leaves 19% of others who are conscious and are looking around and going, what's going on here? Right? So in order for the remaining for the remaining 19% to essentially sway the paths of those 80%, right? So it's a 20% trying to control 80%, right? But right now we only have 1% controlling everything else. You have to decentralize everything. Fucking decentralize everything, right? So we've got Bitcoin that's supposed to make, that's you decentralize currency, right? But we need to take that shit a step further and decentralize power. Decentralized power. So right now, power is concentrated in the hands of those 1% or 0.01% of the conscious human beings who have just decided that they want to use their awareness, their consciousness for evil, to steer the collective, to steer the herd, right? To a hell where they're kings, where they rule, right? Because they call themselves elite. What makes you elite? The fact that you're conscious, the fact that you're aware of the nature of reality and you know how to steer the collective and you have money. That's what makes you elite. Well, you're not really elite. I mean, there's the other 19%. There's you and I, right? We're also conscious. And if we come together, we can raise enough money to steer the remaining 80% in whatever direction to wake them up. The difference is that they've convinced themselves that they're elite. So the rest of us, the remaining 19% of conscious people, need to convince ourselves that we are, I don't want to use the term elite, but we are just as responsible for steering the collective consciousness of the entire human race. We are the stewards of our planet. We are the stewards of our planet, and we are the stewards of the rest of the race. And it's our job to guide, teach, wake up, educate, steer, whatever word you want to do, to the greater good. And the way you do that is you start by first acknowledging and understanding that you're not helpless and you're not alone. That's the biggest thing, right? Because the first thing that I noticed, that I observed, is that people who are aware and conscious, for some reason, because they look around in little pockets or whatever, and they see the remaining 80% that's around them, and they think, oh shit, I'm alone. What is wrong with me? Why do I think this way? Why do I not fit in? You don't fit in because you're not cheap. Find other shepherds. Find other stewards, right? Because that's what the 1% do. They can unite. Think about it. They have the little Bilderberg meetings and shit like that. Like they come together. They look at them. While we're busy fighting ourselves over dumb shit, they know the power of uniting, and that's exactly what they do. So literally take a page from their book. Unite, work together, and then let's steer this shit where we want to go. It's easy. It really is that easy. If it wasn't that easy, they wouldn't be censoring people. Right? Look at what they do. If they weren't afraid, if they didn't understand that the power that they hold lies in the belief that they should be rulers, but they're afraid of that. They know that is a foundation that's built on sand, right? Case in point, let's look at the royal family. Right? I don't know if you guys have ever watched that one show, The Crown, but you'll see in the narrative there that there's a recurring sort of like understanding that at any point, the crowd can be whipped into a frenzy, and these so-called elites that sit on the throne, that sit on the crown, their palaces can quickly turn into prisons. And at any point in time, the collective can look up and storm and take them out. It has happened before. So that was something that you'll see on that show. It was like a recurring theme, right? They were afraid of not agitating the masses, of making sure that they were contributing in some way, that they weren't flaunting the wealth that is not theirs, really. It belongs to the collective, right? So they're very careful of that. So there is, yes, they say that they are fit to rule, but they understand that it's a lie. They say that they are elite, but they understand that it's a fiction. It's a fiction that's built on the very unstable foundation of belief. Even gods. I don't know if you watch the show American Gods. I watched a few episodes and they got kind of boring. But the idea there is that even a god needs the collective beliefs of human beings to be powerful. Belief is a very powerful thing. Even money. Now, we don't even really print paper anymore. They're starting to push us away from money. And now it's literally just digital bits, right? It's just numbers in our phones and on our computers and on a piece of paper. That's money now, all right? But even then, the fictional dollar, which is no longer a tangible thing, it's not based on anything. It used to be based in gold, and people say, well, we've left the gold standard. But even then, gold was just a rock. If we're being completely candid, it's just a rock. Somebody told you it was valuable. You can't eat gold, right? Oh, we need it for computers and shit. Okay, yeah, we don't really need computers. Look at what yes, it's brought us all together, but you can't eat gold. You don't need gold to fucking survive. That is why the natives of America, right? The indigenous people of America they didn't value it, right? The Europeans did for whatever reason, but they didn't value it because they knew that it was not pertinent to their daily existence in any way, shape, or form. It was too soft. You can make metal. You can make weapons out of it. It doesn't help you survive in any way. It's not really that valuable beyond people's collective belief in it, right? So people are saying, oh, well, the dollar isn't worth anything because it's not backed by gold anymore. Yes and no. Oh, they're just printing it. It was always just paper. And it was never really worth anything, even when it was backed by gold, because once again, gold is nothing. It's just a soft, shiny rock. You get my point? So the things that we value, diamonds, is because we believe that it's valuable. The moment people stop believing in it, it loses its value, right? And these 1% understand the power of stoking belief, right? Think about how hard Zuckerberg has been pushing this fucking metaverse bullshit, right? That's what they do. They run ads consistently, right? And they're going to step it up. It's a new year, right? They're going to step it up because they want millions, if not billions of people to believe. There's a lie in believe, by the way, but to believe that somehow this metaverse thing and AI will improve our lives, right? They want people to believe that discarding this simulation for an even shittier simulation, wherein Zuckerberg now is God, right? If you think he doesn't think in terms of what I discuss on the podcast, that we're in a simulation, you're not paying attention. If you think that the actions that Zuckerberg and the like aren't driven by ego and narcissism, where he gets to be a god of a virtual simulation, so he's going to be a god of a world that's within a world, or of a simulation that's within a simulation. It's just his way of being God, a type of God. So what he needs to do is harness the collective, the belief, right? That's what these ads are for. That's what the media saturation is for. All the shit that you're wearing, metaverse. Okay, cool. Whatever. It's can I convince enough people, 80%, right, to believe that this virtual reality that I've created, this metaverse, I'm speaking as Zuckerberg, is important, is valuable, is needed, is necessary. That's how this shit works, guys. It's really that simple. Belief. Think about NFTs. Everybody's hyping up NFTs, but now the running gag is like, I literally could just right click on it and copy it and save it. Why should I buy it? Right? Now, this has always been the case, right? But most people had been convinced that this NFTs are the next big thing. It's valuable, right? That's all the ads that you see. It's all the true currency here is belief. That's it. A person's only power lies in the fact that you believe that they are powerful. But it works. Right? I've said this on the podcast before. Every time I watch a movie, and there's always some fucking tyrant that's losing his goddamn mind, and you see soldiers standing around him, and I'm always wondering, like, why doesn't one of these soldiers just stab him? Like, yo, shut the fuck up. Right? But it's because there was this deeply ingrained belief that this monarch with the crown of gold on his head, he's just wearing a melted stone, right? Melted rock on his head that has been reformed in some ridiculous fashion, right? Hey, look, my fancy costume means that I'm better than you. And the soldiers, the reason why they don't do anything to stop the madness is because they believe it. Now, what happens if we live in a world where people believe that it doesn't have to be this way? It changes. Which is why they censor. Which is why they are trying to close down the internet. Like they're done, so they've shut it down in China. Right? They tamper down on the spread of ideas. And then I saw something recently, it was actually on whitehouse.gov. They say anybody that's anti-government, right, is a domestic terrorist, especially. I mean, I understand, like, they threw in the bit about violence or whatever, but the language there is tricky, right? Because if you're telling people to be against essentially individuals trying to coerce you into doing something that you don't want to do, which we've seen happen over the last few years, which is why they came out with this, right? Look at what has happened. Learn from what has happened in the last 2 years, guys, please, because it's going to repeat itself. They're going to attempt to use the same playbook because if you, once again, aren't paying attention, these so-called elites are not the most creative motherfuckers. They're really not. They do the same shit. They don't really deviate much. So they're not even like they're not even like creative, like they're not even like that creative. Like they're conscious in the fact of like they understand how this shit works. But they're not even creative with it. Like they just use the same shit over and over and over and over again. It's wild. Right? So if you are still like, you can call them elites, that's fine. But if you're still like hyping them up like these motherfuckers are really fit to rule you. Like, okay, we saw Trump called himself a president. This nigga's like, look at this dude. Spent all day on Twitter. Like, could barely string along 2 sentences. And that was who we elevated and said, well, they elevated and said that this guy is better than the rest of us. He's better than you? Trump is? Really? Why? I mean, if you had the same access to capital that he did, I guarantee you probably wouldn't have gone bankrupt 7 times, however many times he had gone bankrupt. But that's an elite, quote, elite. I'm coming for all these people, okay? Who's next? Biden. This guy, he's elite? Really? Because last time I checked, I think they said he shat himself. I mean, yes, that comes with age, but I'm coming for him because his ego was so strong that he wanted to be president. He wanted power. He wanted to rule, despite the fact that his mental faculties are not there. So he cared more about having the illusion of power, or at least people believing that he's powerful, than what was actually best for this country. He's better than you? Let's call these people out. We got Bill Gates, okay? Like, this dude college dropout, came from money. Daddy gave him like hundreds of millions of dollars to start his company. I would hope that if you got hundreds of millions of dollars to start your company, that you would eventually become a billionaire. But once again, look at the rest of us. We keep elevating these people. Why? If your mommy and daddy gave you $100 million to start your own company, where would you be right now? These people have access to capital and wealth, and we keep elevating them like there's something special about them, but all they have is luck and money. We need to stop elevating these people. Who's next? Zuckerberg. I saw on Instagram a meme where people were going in on him. They're like, how does he look like a main character from level 1? Like you have all of that money and you're wearing the same gray shirt every day, the same jeans every day. Like, he looks like ramen noodles, but without the seasoning. Like, I'm just like, but this is what you're doing. He's better than you. How is he better than you, guys? What would you do with $1 billion? I'm sure you'd spend billions of dollars better than him. You would help so many people. How are these people? Like, let's call them out. Let's go for Bezos. Jeffrey Bezos. Have you seen his face lately? This guy is hyped up. He's like pumped up, full of, like, I don't know what he's taking or whatever. And now he's got plastic surgery. There's clearly an insecure human being there. Like, we know where he came from. And now what he's trying to do and what he's trying to be. You look at him, no problem. Whatever, he is what it is, not a judgment. It's just an observation. That is an insecure human being. Why is he better than you? Once again, mommy and daddy gave him money. If my parents gave me $200,000 back in the 90s to start my business, where would I be? Right? Where would you be? Because these are things that keep getting left out when you say, oh, these guys are always a college dropout and he made it. Yeah, but like, that's not the whole story. Now, let's go back to the kings and the queens, right? The Queen Elizabeth. These people say that they are, blue bloods, but they're all inbred, right? All married to their cousins, right? They don't have jobs, never worked a day in their life or whatever. And they are essentially welfare children, the royal family, right? Because it's your money, your tax dollars, the kings and the queens and the prince and all, these are welfare people. They're living off of welfare. The queen is just a great big welfare. She literally is a welfare queen. These people are better than you. There's a fear, just finishing my thought, that the reason why they stripped Andrew of his title was because they're starting to realize that people are starting to slowly wake up and look at these people and say, why should our tax dollars go to supporting you? Why? Who are you? Because once again, if somebody puts a crown on their head and say that they are fit to rule, what they're also saying simultaneously is that you are fit to serve. How dare they? How dare they? You're not insulted? Fuck out of here with that. You came to this world, you found yourself in this world, you came to this world butt naked and afraid like the rest of us. How dare you? You call yourself a governor, you call yourself a president. How dare you? A CEO, how dare you? And a lot of the time, these people walk around better than them, acting like they're better than us. But they're not, unless you believe that they are. Belief. I'll leave you guys with this. Even if you are not ready for the day, it cannot always be night. I love that song. I don't have any feelings about Kanye either way. I do have to say I respect the guy. Like, he is who he is. Like, this is the only person who came out and supported like Kanye and still, Trump, and still had his career. All the things that he said, slavery was a choice, all this stuff like that. And we're still talking about him. And he's just breezing through life, just being who he is. And everybody's like, cancel him, whatever. But at the end of the day, he's still an artist that still creates, and you got to respect that. But that line, even if you are not ready for the day, it cannot always be night. Woo! That has been my mantra for the last month. It cannot always be night. Okay? So this is Earth. This is the world. We're looking around and we're seeing the shit's fucked up. Yeah. Okay, what do? Well, you seek out other 20%. Find them. They're usually intelligent with good hearts. That's it. You'll know. You know them. You can tell by what they say. You can tell by... We need to find each other now. And this is the night. It has been the night of humanity. But it cannot always be night. Even if the 1% is not ready for the day, right? Because they thrive in the darkness, right? Even if they're not ready for the day, for enlightenment of the entire human race, right? For us to not live like this. It cannot always be night. Yeah. So, leaving you guys with that one. I could go on. So it's 56 minutes in. I could go on, but I think I'll save it. I'm going to post this, and then I'm going to record another one. I want to talk about aliens, and I'm going to start. I'm kind of slowly getting off the whole politics stuff because, it is what it is. And at this point, you guys know what you know. But we're going to start delving more into the simulation hypothesis and aliens and how, more of those sort of theories and telling stories. So we're gearing up. That's what this year is going to be, hopefully. So yeah, but it was really important. It was in my heart, to do this episode. And let's talk about that. Yes. To tie it all together with, the start of it, we can do better. Right. There is if you have a desire for the world, right, you can't look at this world and say it's not okay the way things are. Right. Desire and outcome are linked. So if you have a desire to see a better world, then the outcome exists as a probability, and we can do something about it. The first step is to shake off this bullshit where we feel as though these individuals are better than us, because they're not. They're human beings just like you. They're awake just like you. And if they can steer the collective into one direction, so can we, right? We are stewardesses, right? If you're looking up and you're looking around and you're saying, I don't like the way things are, fucking change it. Change it. You have the power to do so. You have to unite, right? More people who call for unity, more people who start throwing aside our differences and finding the middle ground, start working together, the less people believe in the bullshit that these so-called elites have shoved down our throats, the less power they have. Look, if even gods can fall when people stop believing them. Think about how powerful an entity like Zeus, even though he never existed, or at least not in the way we've been led to believe that they existed. Zeus. My dog was named Zeus. I had a dog named Zeus, a sable shepherd. Now, 2,000 years ago, if I would have named my dog Zeus, they probably would have cut my head off or crucified me, right? But 2,000 years later, Zeus is dead, right? As in, the god Zeus is dead. Because nobody believes in that god anymore, or Hera, or Apollo, right? So if a collective of human beings removing beliefs from an entity can also destroy said entity, right? If you remove your belief that the world has to be this way, if you remove the belief that we can't do better as a species, and if you start to get enough people to believe that it doesn't have to be like this, it can be better, then you can make it so. You are here to make it so. So make it so.